What I see a lot of players do is they end up in a situation where they get a month or 2 months or 6 months in and things don't start to go their way, and they start to second guess everything. They start to I'm thinking about moving full-time to play professional poker. Any advice you would give? I currently have a full-time job but no longer enjoy it. So, assuming you have done the necessary things in terms of saving up enough money, having enough proper bankroll, having emergency expenses, figuring out health insurance, life insurance, all of those things. The number one thing I recommend is to save up some vacation and take like a full week off of work and treat it like a trial run on playing full-time poker. Because one of the biggest things that happens as you transition to full-time poker is it becomes work like anything else. It becomes a job. And so you got to see if you're still loving it when, it's not fun. And then on top of that, you also have the challenge of playing under additional pressure, right? So I like to tell people if they can take the longest vacation that work will allow you to take, whether it's 1 week or 2 weeks, 10 days, whatever you can get. Maybe be creative around it, like wrap it around a holiday. Like maybe if you have 5 days of vacation, you take it like the 2 days after and the 3 days before Thanksgiving break or something to give yourself like an extra like 10, 11 days. And then like I would take that entire vacation and grind and see how you feel after 10 days of playing that way, because it really does change the vibe and the feel of the game. A big key to being successful in the full-time poker realm is knowing what I call your engine is. Like, you need that thing that you can always go to, even when you're running bad, and print money. If you don't have that, if you don't know, like you need that kind of, it's almost like your last line of defense, right? It's that thing where it's like, okay, well, at least I know if everything else goes bad, I have X. X can be sit and goes. X can be cash games. X can be really small stakes tournaments. X can be grinding live at your local casino. What X is doesn't matter, as long as you honestly know, like, X is the thing you can go to even if it's miserable and you got to do it 70 hours a week and you can make your nut low. If you don't know what X is, you need to figure out what X is before you start going full time. Like, I know for me, I can go grind $5 and under tournaments on all the sites and I will make money every single week. I will not have a losing week playing $5 and below tournaments across all the sites. I won't make a fortune. I won't get rich off of it, but I know that I can make $1,500 to $3,000 a month playing the small stakes across all the sites very consistently, and I can do it on a very small bankroll. And I can eliminate variance that way. You've got to know what those things are. Because if you don't, then what I see a lot of players do is they end up in a situation where they get a month or 2 months or 6 months in and things don't start to go their way, and they start to second guess everything. They start to second guess what they're playing. They start to second guess how they're playing. They start to second guess the way they've played. Things that have been profitable that they've done for years, all of a sudden they're unsure about, You got to have that anchor and that foundation. It's really, really, really important. And I mean, over the last like 15 years, I've been in some ugly situations. I've been down to my last $100 of bankroll multiple times. I've had days where like I've committed my entire bankroll to 1 day of play, basically been all in. I've had situations where, I need to pull a big chunk of my bankroll and I'm putting it off and putting bills off to try and buy myself more time. and then playing with the pressure of that. Like, I've been in some insane situations, and they're all far from ideal. We need to understand that variance is infinite. What I mean by that is, given enough time, everything is possible, right? If you had infinite time and you could run infinite coin flip simulations, eventually you could flip a coin that landed heads 1,000,000 times in a row, right? Eventually that would happen. Now, obviously it would take an insane amount of time, an immeasurable amount of time, but just mathematically speaking, you had infinite time and infinite simulations. At some point you could flop a coin and it would literally land 1,000,000 times in a row heads. That is mathematically possible. And so that little object lesson is to illustrate a point, which is that, like, yes, the more extreme variance gets, the less likely it is to happen, right? But if you think by the same token, a profitable player can have a 50 buy and downswing. Occasionally, a profitable player can have a 100 buy and downswing. It's mathematically possible for a profitable player to have a 200 buy and downswing. It's extremely more rare, but they can have a 500. Like, as you get down the list, like, you can have some insane downswings that happen really, really rare percentages of the time. And so if you play for long enough, you're going to eventually run into some situations where you just run bad at levels that you didn't think were mathematically possible. And if one of those times happens at a time that you're not prepared for it, you can put yourself in a really, really bad spot. It's very similar to bankroll management, right? Like, we don't put all of our buy-ins into one tournament because anything can happen in one tournament. Well, there's going to be times where you're going to have 50 game, 100 game, 200 game stretches where astronomically bad things are going to happen. And what's inevitable is those things balance out. But usually when astronomical good things happen and we go on a really big heater, and let's just say we're a mid-stakes player and we just go on a sick heater and we have a 10K month, we pretty much never take that 10K and keep it in the bankroll, right? When we run astronomically good, some of that money goes to the bankroll, some of it goes to the wife, some of it goes to builds, some of it goes to maybe a new computer, right? Like, we're still raking the astronomical run good, but when the astronomical run bad happens, we don't have anything to put that up against. And so again, a lot of players, they base what they expect variance to happen based on what's most commonly going to happen. Like, when I say I know what my nut low is and I can play small stakes and I'm not going to have a losing week, that means that 98, 99% of the time I'm not going to have a losing week playing small stakes. But there is going to be that 1 or 2% of the time where I will have a losing week even though I'm playing micro stakes. It's going to happen once every 2 years. In the grand scheme of things, that's not a big deal. But if the 1 week it happens is the 1 week I can't afford for it to happen, then there is a non-zero chance that I can have a risk of ruin that could damage me financially, mentally, emotionally, whatever. And again, like, we are so capable of just planning for what we expect to happen and not planning for what we unexpect to happen, right? Most people have a budget, but most people's budgets don't necessarily factor for the emergency situations or the unexpected. Most people have a budget for the things they expect to happen, but they don't have a tree falls on the car and damages the car budget, or I twist my ankle and I can't work for a month budget. Like, most people just don't, either they can't or they're not willing to prepare for those types of scenarios because they don't happen often enough to be a priority in our lives. And I'm one to blame, pointing a finger at myself. For big chunks of the last 10 years, out of necessity, I have not had a, all hell breaks loose emergency budget because I just haven't had the freedom to do that. Putting a wife through full-time school, raising 4 kids, we just haven't had it. We've had to kind of faith our way through it. And it's less than ideal. But when you can, you should. There are times in life you can't, but when you can, you should. And it makes it critically important that, you know, when we're talking about full-time poker and variance, you need to have the plan for the weeks, the 1 or 2 weeks out of the year where literally everything goes wrong. Can you still be okay? And can you still be okay is a question financially, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically, all of that stuff, right? Because you need all those things in order to be to play at your best and play at the top of your game.